Data or it didn't happen, right? Okay, but what exactly does that mean? We've all heard it before, but does it mean that we are supposed to record and document every single time our client says their sound or practices their skill? No, the answer is no. And that's what today's episode of the Speech and Language Kids podcast is all about: data collection and how you're probably doing way too much and how to simplify your data collection system. We're going to make less work for you and help your clients make faster progress. So I am Carrie Clark, speech language pathologist and creator of the SLK curriculum. And I have spent the last, how many years? 14 years of my life figuring out how to help you streamline and simplify the job of speech language pathology. I am myself a speech language pathologist and started on this journey when I just needed to survive as a school-based SLP. And as I found ways to simplify, I have shared that with you guys. And then you have brought me your challenges and I have continued to innovate. And we are down to the simplest data system that I could ever come up with. It works amazing. I use it myself. The people inside our curriculum are using it to much success. So today I'm going to give you the simplest data collection system that you have ever seen, and yet is also extremely effective. All right, so hang with me. We're going to get this done. I want you to start this journey with me by imagining parallel parking. So those of you who know how to drive a car, you probably had to pass the parallel parking part of your test where you pull up next to the car in front of you and then you have to like back into the spot and then even it out, right? Okay. I want you to imagine trying to parallel park while also having to write down how many times you spun the steering wheel each direction on each maneuver, on each part of the maneuver. Okay. So imagine that for a moment. It's probably not going to go very well. You can either write down the data or you can do the thing, but you can't do both well. And this is what is happening when we are trying to collect data while doing therapy. When we are writing down how they did, writing down what cue worked, writing down whatever it is that we need to write down, we are taking ourselves out of the moment with that client. When we are fully engaged with a client, when we are helping them, we are going to catch these nuances or these slight, oh, hey, what was that? What'd you do with your tongue right there, right? We're going to catch those little aha moments and be able to shape them into what we need and help our clients make faster progress. That is the magic of therapy. It is not being able to write down what they are doing, although that's important too. The magic of therapy is the part where we are one-on-one connected with another human being, helping them figure out what's missing, get that piece in place, and then capturing those very, very nuanced moments where they either do it well or they just do it slightly better and we're moving in the right direction, and then we can shape that into the skill we need. Okay. So yes, data is important. I understand that. We need data. But the most important part is the piece where we're doing the therapy. And just like trying to parallel park and write down how many times you spun the steering wheel around, you are not doing the best therapy that you can do when you are also writing things down. Okay. So I know that's making it very black and white, and it's not a black and white issue, but I want you to have that mindset moving forward, because we're going to talk about how do we do this? How do we collect enough data to make good decisions without taking away from that piece, that magic moment of being fully 100% present with the client. Okay, so why do we need data? If we start from a place of understanding why we're collecting data, it will help us know what data we need to collect and when we can step back from it. So yes, data is important. We need data to know what's working and what's not working, which of our strategies are working, right? Because as I am always saying, these are tools in our toolbox, right? All of the therapy strategies we're trying are not one size fits all. There's no one strategy that works for everyone. So we try a lot of different things and we see what works. And so we need data to be able to know if it's working, right? We also need data to see if the client is making progress, if they are backsliding, if they are plateaued. That is helpful for our decision making, right? We need data to know when to move on to the next skill, when to try a different strategy, when to step back and say, whoa, we're missing something here. reconvene the team. Let's have a big meeting, right? And then we also need data to meet requirements set by our employers, the insurance companies, the reimbursing, the billing, all of these different entities also need data from us to prove that we're doing our jobs or show that the organization should get reimbursed for this or to pay you directly even. Okay, so those are the reasons we need data. And so if we keep that in our mind as we're moving through this process, then we can see that we still need enough data to fill those requirements, but we also need to be spending most of our time engaged in the actual therapy. But that does not mean that our data should happen outside of therapy. We can do it all. We can do it all, guys. We just need a system. And I have that system for you. Introducing Carrie Clark's super effective and awesome data collection system something. I don't really have a big fancy name for it, but this is the system that I use and that I teach inside our platform. Okay, so here's the big picture for your data, right? Once per month, you collect the big data. This is the in-depth data on every repetition and every goal that they have, where you are getting an incredibly accurate picture of what they can do right now. That's once per month. Every other session, it is a simplified version of data that just rates their performance on a scale of 1 to 5 for the whole session. Okay? So if we think about it, most of our clients are not making such fast progress that they need in-depth data collected every session. If you have a client who is making such fast progress that you really do need a complete percentage every session because it's so much different than the last session, then number one, sure, do that for that one client. But number two, do they need to be in therapy? If they're making that fast progress, that sounds like a client who you could give some strategies to parents or teachers and the kid would be able to figure it out, right? They come to us because they need in-depth practice and in-depth teaching of those skills, okay? So once per month, collecting the really accurate data, usually sufficient. And then every other session is a therapy session. This is when we are in the moment, we are focused, we are engaging with that child, we are helping them make that progress, and then we collect very minimal data on our therapy days. All right, so let's dig into both pieces of that, and then I'll talk about how we organize the data collection system as well. Okay, so let's start with this idea of the monthly data. So let's say that you have a client that has 3 goals. If you have a client who has more than 3 goals that you're working on, I would recommend maybe looking at that plan and see if that's maybe too many goals because it feels like a lot of goals. We can't make progress on every single thing that they need to work on, right? We need to prioritize the skills that are most important right now, the skills that will make other skills easier to learn after that. So let's say you have 3 goals. Once per month, I like to do this on the last week of the month. You're simply going to prompt them to demonstrate each of those 3 skills for those 3 goals. And you're going to collect, let's say, 10 to 20 reps of data for each one. Okay. Now, sometimes I write my goals as a time-based goal. So I'll say that they will do this at least 10 times during a 10-minute sample, or they will not do this more than 5 times in a 10-minute sample. And so that would be a time-based versus a repetition-based. But if you're trying to get a percentage accuracy, doing 20 repetitions of something is usually enough to give you a pretty accurate percentage, unless you feel like, oh, well, the first 5 were kind of throwaways and now, we need more than just 10 maybe to do it. Sure. But collect the percentage or the data that you need to demonstrate how they're doing on each of those 3 goals. This is going to give you an accurate picture of how they're doing right now. And it's also going to show you carryover effect too. Okay. So if you have been with me for a while, you know that I recommend you focus on 1 skill per month to work on instead of trying to hit all their goals every month. And so we're still collecting data on every skill every month because even though we're working on this language skill, there may be a carryover to this other language skill or this speech skill, or maybe this other skill that we wrote a goal for that we haven't got to yet is actually progressing on its own and it might not need therapy. They may just figure that out on their own. They finally are old enough, mature enough, their brain is developed enough that this one is starting to click on its own. Okay. So taking data on all their goals helps us to know where we need to focus our time, because we want to focus on the skills they're not making progress on their own, right? Because if they're already making progress, sure, you keep doing that. Keep letting your brain process that, right? We'll work on the ones that you need our specific expertise for. Okay, we also want to make sure that we're collecting data the same way every time so that we are getting an accurate picture of if they are progressing. So the way we do this inside the SLK curriculum is we have data probes inside every goal packet, or at least that is the intent. The data probes are currently in the works. I am adding those as I get them done. We're just updating the packets. So if you grab a packet from our curriculum and it does not yet have a data probe, keep checking back. We will be adding those over the next couple weeks. But our goals are written in such a way that we can easily measure the progress during a therapy session, okay? And then we have one data probe that we use to check it. So for example, if they are working on answering a variety of WH questions, I have a picture that is kind of like a busy breakfast scene, family having breakfast. And then there's a bunch of different questions. There's who questions, how questions, when questions, why questions. And so you just run them through and ask those questions and see if they can answer the questions based on the picture, okay? And you just get a percentage. So this is not a teaching moment. We're not teaching them how to do this. We're just running them through the data probe, kind of like an assessment, but on a much smaller scale. If we are only pulling out that picture and asking those questions once per month, we don't really need to worry about they just heard that, so now they've got a leg up and they can answer it better the next time. We don't really need to worry about that. So don't use your data probes for therapy. Just use them for the data probe, okay? So you have a goal written in such a way that you can measure it easily during a session. You have a probe that allows you to quickly and easily assess how they're doing on that and to measure it the same way every time. And then the other key here to your monthly data is to have all of your data on one page. So I have a page I used to use that had, you could write each of your goals, like all of your goals on the one page, and then have your monthly data. I have kind of changed that to having one data page per goal. And so you have your data probe, right? That's got like a picture or some sort of prompt and like some questions or whatever it is that you're doing. The second page then is just a grid. And so it says, here's the goal. And then month 1, data, here's a box. Month 2, data, here's a box. There's 12 boxes so that you can collect your entire year worth of progress on one page. And the reason that's important is because you want to be able to look at it at a glance and number 1, see if they're making progress or not, right? Because you're going to have a clear percentage at the bottom of each box or a tally at the bottom of each box, a total, whatever it is that you're measuring, that's going to show you, is it going up or down, right? But then that's also going to allow you to make sure that you have data for every month. So you could see, oh man, I haven't taken data on this in 3 months because it's all right there on the same page, okay? So like I said, my current system is that each of our goal packets has the data probe, has the monthly data tracker, and then you would have, if you have 3 goals for that client, you would have 3 of those data trackers, and then you can just very, very quickly and easily see how they're doing on each of their 3 goals. Are they making progress? Are they not? Which one should we focus on next? Okay. This is the data you use for your progress notes, for your big decision making, for your dismissals, for deciding when to move them to a generalization phase, right? Because if you have 3 skills that you're measuring in therapy and they can do them in therapy, then it's time to move to generalization and get them to do those in the classroom, right? So that's monthly data, okay? So now let's talk about what we do on our other days, right? We still need to know how things are going. We still need to take notes because if your brain is as broken as mine is, I don't remember what I worked on with that many different kids every session, right? So I do need some record of what I did, and I do want a general idea of how they're doing so that, again, I can see, oh yeah, we are making progress, or no, we really have been at this level for a while. I actually, the other day in therapy, I was looking at I was working with several kids, and I was like, wow, their speech is really not that bad. And I almost thought I was gaslighting myself that I had imagined speech problems that existed that weren't really there. But then I was able to look back at my daily notes and go, oh no, yeah, like 3 weeks ago we were at a 2 on the scale of 1 to 5, and now we're at a 4 or 5, right? And so I was able to say, no, we really are just making progress. I'm not losing my mind. So I need notes. I'm assuming you do too. Also, we're going to talk about when your employer needs notes or your billing needs notes. This is what we use, okay? So we, on our non-data days, so our all the rest of the days of the month, these are our therapy days. We want to spend as much focus as possible on the therapy and doing the therapy. We still want to have a note at the very end. So here's how I do this. At the end of my session, I say, amazing, you did it, great job, before they leave the room. And so sometimes I'll give them a couple minutes of free time if I need a minute to write this down, or if we're like playing a game or something and they're taking turns, I will be writing it while they're taking their turn in the game or whatever it is. But before the session ends, I just jot down a quick note that tells me vaguely how they're doing without collecting data on each and every repetition. So here's what I write down. I write down the date, the specific skill we worked on. So that might be R at the single word level or answering where questions, right? Whatever it is we specifically worked on. And then an overall rating for the session for that skill on a scale of 1 to 5. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how'd they do today? They were at about a 2. They were at about a 4. They were at a 5, totally consistently doing it the whole time, okay? On my daily notes page, I already have a box there that gives you a 1 to 5 scale that says, like needed minimal prompting, needed maximal prompting. Like it gives you a description of each one. But you can also just make your own. You're basically just saying on a scale of 1 to 5, how'd they do today? And you just circle 1 through 5. Okay. So we are not collecting data on each repetition because remember, I wanted to be in the moment during those repetitions. Okay. And then sometimes I will jot a quick note of something I want to remember, like this cue worked really well, or next time go to sentence level. Right. And so there's a note section too. So that's all I do. It takes me all of 30 seconds to write that down during my session. And then the rest of the session is focused on that child. Okay, so now I know what question you're going to ask because it's always the question that comes next. And this is, well, what about Medicaid, insurance, my employer, fill in the blank. Somebody is requiring numeric data out of you. Okay, so what do? Well, I'm going to tell you to do the minimum viable data that you can possibly do. And sometimes you don't know until you try what they will accept. Remember, the purpose of data, if you are using data from your big decisions, yes, you need very accurate data, but that's what we're getting once a month. Medicaid is not making decisions on your therapy. The insurance is not making decisions on your therapy. They just need to know vaguely how they're doing. They would like to, see progress at some point. But that data does not need to be as accurate as the data you're using to make clinical decisions. Okay? So if they require a percentage, great. If you circled 3 out of 5 on your rubric, take a percentage. What is 3 out of 5? There's a percentage for that, right? If they're asking for a specific, if that doesn't work, either for you or for them, you could also assign a percentage or a percentage range to your rubric. So you could say, a 5 is 90 to 100%. A 4 is 70 to 90%. So you can assign a range, or you could even say, 4 is about 80%. And then you circle the number. And then when you go to fill in your billing or your data or whatever it is that they're asking, you say they achieved about an 80% accuracy during today's session, right? So we're still giving them a percentage, but you didn't have to collect every repetition in order to do it. Now, I will say this usually works for most of the people I work with, most of my SLPs, most of our subscribers. This is enough. Nobody's ever questioned my Medicaid data when I put it in this way. And I usually just say 3 out of 5, like 3/5 or, whatever the score was. I don't even try to put a percentage in. And nobody has ever questioned me. But I will say I have occasionally had an SLP say, oh, nope, I tried it. And they said, no, not good enough. So if that's the case, then number one, maybe do some advocating for yourself and explain to your employers why this is not best practice and why it is not helping serve your clients. And then if absolutely necessary, maybe just say, okay, well, I'll collect data on 5 repetitions or 10 repetitions, just so that you can get that percentage to put in your data. But then again, put your data away, spend the rest of the time on focusing on the actual therapy. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. So that's the daily notes. You're just doing the minimum that you need to be able to keep track of what you did and how it's going, so you can basically see the progress, right? Like I said, I was able to go back and go, oh yeah, no, 3 weeks ago we were at a 2. Okay, cool. We're making progress, because sometimes my brain forgets. So let's talk briefly about how do we organize all this? How do we keep it all together? So my system, I like a 3-ring binder. I really like paper and pencils and pens and writing things with my finger parts. I like that better than a screen. I'm also the weirdo that carries around a flip phone all day because I don't want a smartphone in my pocket connecting me to the world. So maybe I'm a little bit weird, but my system is to have a 3-ring binder. Each child has a tab, and then each tab for each child or client, I have their monthly data pages and probes right there in the front, so I can quickly look and see where we stand on each of their goals. And then behind the monthly data pages are just a whole bunch of daily notes pages. And so you can grab my daily notes pages inside our curriculum if you want those. But it's just like 3 lines for each day. So it's like date, skill, 1 through 5 that I circle, and then like 2 more lines of just like where I could jot a note if I need to. So you can, it's 3 lines. So you can imagine there's, 10 to 20 days on each page. So I'll just put a little stack of those pages in each person's tab. And then on my data days, I go to those front pages and I fill those out. On my therapy days, I go to the daily notes page and I just real quick, just jot it down. That's what I do. Okay. I do have a coaching client who says she loves doing her data on screens and she likes spreadsheets. And she said, sometimes I try to keep up with the daily notes page, like my printable. She's like, I just like doing it on the spreadsheet better. Awesome. Don't try to do it in multiple places because that's going to be more work for you. If you like a spreadsheet, awesome. You can easily do the same system on a spreadsheet. So each client can have a tab in your spreadsheet. You can have your monthly data boxes at the top where you're just recording their monthly data at the top so you can glance at that quickly. And then below that, just have a line for each daily record every time you take a daily note. And then again, just write the date in one column, what you worked on in the next column, have a 1 through 5. For spreadsheets, you can very easily have like check boxes and then just fill that in down the column so that every box in that column has the same, 1 through 5 check boxes. You could do that. And then just a quick note section, right? So you can do that on a spreadsheet. There's lots of different ways you can do this. I like paper, but not everybody's there. So make it whatever you think you will actually keep up with. Okay. And then this also just becomes your lesson plan, right? You can just jot down what you want to work on next time so that you remember, and you don't have to spend time after work lesson planning for the next week. You've already written down what you want to work on. Now you just have to grab that activity or work on that thing while you're playing a game or while you're playing with toys, right? It doesn't have to be a big elaborate plan. And we have other podcasts that are on that topic of how to do no prep therapy. So if you need that, look back through our past ones. All right, so that's my data collection system. It's as easy and simple as I can possibly make it, and yet I still find that I have enough data to make good decisions, that I can see how my clients are doing, and actually having less data makes it easier for me to see how they're doing because I just have to glance at it. I don't have to go through and interpret a bunch of X's and O's and pluses and minuses and all of that, right? It makes it so much simpler for me. All right, if you would like to grab our data probes, our monthly data pages, our daily notes pages, any of those things, plus all the activities that come along with our data probes for our goal packets, you can get that at hub.speechandlanguagekids.com, HUB. That's part of our SLK curriculum. We have a ton of really awesome goal packets for all different areas of speech-language communication. So I encourage you to check that out. Or make your own and let me know what questions you have along the way. All right. Hope that helps. We'll see you next time on the Speech and Language Kids podcast. Bye for now.